Hello, everybody. Here we are. A new day, a new live stream, a new Queen's Gambit episode. Well, we are just finishing off the previous one, episode 6. Last time we mentioned, sorry, I'm just gonna invite everyone to join on Instagram as well. In the last episode, I mean, the episode 6 is so intense and so much happens and so emotionally and mentally engaging that I decided to split it into 2. So this is gonna be episode 6, part 2. Part 1 is already up on the YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen that by any chance, have a look. Before we begin, I'm gonna make my usual disclaimer that I always do. This series is not intended for young people, children, so it should be, if you are above 18 years old, then go ahead. And if you are below, then it's up to your parents' consideration, I guess, if you can watch the series. Also, it's emotionally quite triggering content, so it's very good to talk about not just the easy stuff, not just the easy breezy stuff, but also emotionally challenging and serious stuff, in my opinion. But if you feel like in a vulnerable state right now, and if you feel like it's too much, please, at any stage, feel free to stop watching. And these are the little disclaimers I wanted to share. And I'm gonna carry on with my slides because I like making them. Although I feel like, you know, at the very beginning I was more creative, and now as the series is finishing, I'm a bit like, what should I like to scout pictures and things like that. But anyway, the other disclaimer I have to make as we begin is that I'm linking every important link below, any resources I used or I looked at, so go ahead and check it out. I believe I have one viewer. That's so sweet. Thank you so much. Please let me know who are you in the comment section. I would love to know who are you, and I appreciate you coming onto the live stream. If you don't wanna say anything in the comment, that's okay. But last time I did this, I had no live viewers, but you know what? I don't mind, because at the end of the day, it's going on YouTube, and afterwards, those who are interested can watch. So what I would say is, let's begin. So this is where we left off, episode 6, part 1, when Beth is in Paris and she's playing really well at the tournament. She's really prepping for the big game against Borgov. And she goes in with a lot of confidence. She did a lot of preparation with Benny and with Harry before, and like she was preparing for this day when she gets to play again Borgov, because in the last tournament in Mexico, when they played, she lost against him, and not only lost the game against him, but also unfortunately lost her adoptive mom, Alma. So it's a super intense and traumatic experience. So I feel like it gives her an additional fire and purpose to try and win against Borgov this time. But we mentioned that she gets distracted by her old friend Cleo. Cleo is the model who she only just met recently in New York at Benny's house. And she kind of rings her up, and Beth is trying to say that it's not the right time to meet. Cleo just says it's only a drink. So then we know what happens when it's only a drink. Only a drink turned into multiple drinks, unfortunately. And the next scene, we are instantly taken to the tournament again. It starts with a knock on the hotel door, and we see Beth immersed in a full bath of cold water, trying to sober up. And we see also that someone is in her bed. But I'm not going to go into this, but I believe it's Cleo. So Cleo ended up staying there with her. It's a bit hazy what happened last night. We don't really know. We know that there were some men they were talking to, but Beth was really distracted. It felt like Beth is just trying to please her friend and really is going against her own values here. So the scene when Borgov and Beth are playing, Beth arrives late, sweating, super. It's obvious that she's hangover at least, if not yet still drunk. She keeps drinking a lot of water. Now the intensity and the tension of this scene I could totally relate to, because when you play such an important game, you can't afford not to go into it without any sort of, time to yourself, and like you have to like think about it. You have to prep for it mentally and emotionally. So such an intense scene. And then of course the filmmakers have put like this suspense music with the sound of the chess clock. That ticking of the chess clock really, really creates the more suspension and the more drama to the whole scene. So I really love that. Now, if you guys go back and just have a look at that scene, it's middle part of episode 6. I generally would recommend to do so, because the amount of psychological drama the film creators portray, it's just really amusing. And if you have never played a real life chess tournament, I can tell you that, hold on a second, I need to, just a sec, sorry. I had to close the window. Sorry about that, because it was noisy outside. So when you play a real life chess tournament, metaphysics and body language is huge. Imagine that you sit across from your opponent and there is essentially this battle on the chessboard. And if someone is really bad at showing their emotions, like, when they say, oh, whatever she thinks, it's written on her, all over her face or his face, this can actually really hold you back when you play chess in real life. And even in the scene how Beth and Borgov are looking into each other's eyes and holding that eye contact or looking away, or Beth kind of shake her hand shaking, I just felt like the filmmakers and probably their advisors really were grasping that emotional battle that goes on a real life chess tournament. And that happens even if you are not hangover or drunk or anything like that. So you can only imagine, if you are not prepared for the biggest game of your life, how you feel. And that's when I wrote on the slide that Beth is not only clearly like in a bit of this aggressive play mode, but she's super upset with herself. That's very clear, because she knows she messed up. And it's very hard to face our own mistakes. And that's in life, just as in life as in chess. And Beth had to really face her mistake because she got beaten. Now, if you want to check out the chess game that they played, the article from ChessBase India that I always refer to contains that game, and it's linked. It's going to be linked in the description below. So go and check it out. They usually post a chessboard that you can click through the moves, and they also write down the moves, the notations. So I just think that I'm not going to talk about it now because it's easier to check it out on the article. But Beth is not playing well. And Beth is playing very aggressive and a bit trying to be cocky to mask her mistakes, but it's clear, crystal clear. At the end, she says, I resign. And she gets up, leaves. And people start clapping as the game finishes. That used to be a custom they used to do. They, on big tournaments, probably in the final game, they would still do that. You know, it's a bit like in tennis or football, like cheering on the winners. But with chess, because people play in the same room and there has to be silence, clapping can only happen if it's the only last game that is going on and then it finishes. I would ask if anyone, not sure if anyone here wants to answer in the chat, but if you watch this after, please let me know, what do you think about this scene? What did you think watching it? Have you ever played a real life tournament? Have you ever felt so tense, and have you ever felt psychologically challenged to face your partner and your own? Like, that's why chess is so intense, because we instantly have to face the consequences of our moves. And if you think about it, it's like facing the decisions in our life. It's very parallel to me. So I think it's beautiful. So after this loss, Beth is heading home on the plane and also talking to Benny. I mentioned here on the slide that, in my opinion, the grief really just hit her at this stage. Like, she was really trying to hold it together after Alma passed. She had to sort out the funeral and the next tournament. And, you know, it's like when you are in a state of shock, and it only just after like drops the huge amount of sadness and anger, and it's a whole mixture of emotions. Now, I'm not an expert. I'm not claiming to be a psychologist or any expert of this, but I am interested in the topic, and I am aware that grief has many different stages. So I feel like here Beth just reached that stage where she's breaking. She's at a breaking point. She doesn't really know what she wants to do going forward. Benny mentions to her that the papers are saying that Beth seemed drunk at her game with Borgov. And of course, Benny is super anti-alcohol, and he kind of convinced her not to drink while she was with him in New York. But now, of course, it's like in anything in life, when we are alone, we really have to sometimes stay strong for ourselves, and not because we want to please somebody else or we feel the pressure, you know? And Benny asks her to go back to New York because he knows that if she stays alone, she might get into a self-destructive loop. But she refuses. She says she needs to be alone now, and she doesn't know what the future is going to look like for her. As she gets home, the phone rings and more bad news are coming, because Beth's adoptive father, Mr. Whitley, but his lawyer calls to say that Mr. Whitley wants his house. While previously, when Alma died, he just wanted to do nothing with her funeral or Beth or anything. So he just said, yeah, the house is yours. You just have to pay the mortgage on it. Now he's taking it back. And he says, or the lawyer says, that actually, he always just said she could stay until she figures things out, but that's not true. And I must say that at this stage, Beth was really, really standing up to herself, And I just always feel like she was really good at expressing her needs and standing up for what she knows is true. And I really respect that in Beth. So above all her chess mastery as a woman, as a young woman, similar to my age, some of her personality traits are super inspiring to me. So yeah, that was nice to see how she, expresses how Mr. Whitley is lying, and she knows that, and she's not going to give up on the house. So she says she's going to buy it from him. She has to pay $7,000, but she does say that she's going to deduct her mother's funeral costs, because, of course, that was kind of his responsibility to at least contribute. And there was a fun exchange there, because Mr. Whitley, Beth says that Mr. Whitley's part in the house, because Alma's part is, of course, entitled to Beth, but Mr. Whitley's part was only $5,000, and he says it was $7,000, and I have receipts to show you. And so then Beth goes back and says, I will deduct the funeral money, and I have receipts to show you. Her tongue is very, very sharp, and I think it's amazing, because you know how many times we are in a situation where we just don't know how to react. And then after it's like, oh, I could have said this or that. And I just feel like it never happens with Beth, because he always just knows. Of course, it's a film, I understand, but I just like her personality traits. And I'm sure it exists in real life. People are really good with answering, but it's not about rudeness. It's just truly about smart and witty speech. And this is a scene where some cool music is going on, and she starts boxing up Alma's clothes and stuff. And it's the stage of the grief where she has to kind of move on. Now that she's buying the house, she can make it to her own taste, and she does make changes. She's trying to really go back into a flow. She's trying to practice even some chess. But you can tell that she's not happy. Now, this is the time when she also gets a phone call from a Christian association who wants to sponsor her for the Moscow Invitational Tournament. Because after the Paris tournament, the next huge event is the Moscow Invitational. Since she is the American champion, she gets invited. But just because she gets invited, there are costs involved. And when I used to play chess, and my sister, I mean, even though we achieved great results, unless you had a sponsor or rich family or wealthy family, someone had to cover the costs, right? So I do understand that some people think when someone is talented in a sport, then they just get everything for free, but that's not true. And many times to be able to win, let's say, such a tournament as the Moscow Invitational, you need to invest money. And then the first prize might be a lot of money, but you first have to make the investment. And then if you win it back, that's great. And that's how Beth has been earning money by, you remember even at the beginning, she had to ask money from Mr. Scheibels. Even if it was $5, she had to invest it in. And then when she won, then she can pay back her investments, right? It's a bit again in life. Sometimes we make investments and then we get profit on them, or we don't. We lose it, because if you invest in a tournament and you don't win the first 3 prizes or whatever is the money prize, then you kind of lost it, but you did gain experience. So again, chess and life is just interconnected there, I believe. So she asks Benny about his opinion on this sponsorship, and he strongly recommends for Beth to take it. But of course, it's a Christian association, so it's gonna come with certain conditions, right? We already know that. Beth is not famous about her religious views or anything, but at this stage, Benny advises to take that sponsorship. In the meantime, we can see a scene. Again, music in this episode is huge, and I have a little surprise at the end in the description box, but they create this scene where music is going on. Beth is like sitting at home, trying to really understand around herself what's happening, trying to grasp the amount of emotions that are coming up in her. And that's why I say the grief, the stages of grief. Here it seems like she's a bit calmer, but sad, just purely sad. She even goes to a restaurant by herself to have some dinner, and then we see this beautiful voice, the lady who is singing about losing someone, and it's very emotional in my opinion. I loved the scene, but very sad. And this is her real breaking point, where she begins to just go into major depression, and she's being very self-destructive. She's drinking a lot, blasting music, doesn't care about anything. The house is a mess. She tries a new makeup, which is good. I like, she's just desperately trying to find herself again. She kind of lost herself, and it's understandable. So she is a mess, and she gets invited to the Kentucky State High School, where her first ever tournament was, you remember, in the first beginning episodes. And she basically gets invited to act as like a celebrity, let's say, because of course she's local there. And she's almost late, like she is very rude, she's not well, and she ends up smoking outside the school. Well, actually, she even meets that girl who back in the day witnessed her first period came, and she helped her out in the tournament. So she's even a bit like not nice to that girl. So yeah, it's just bad. And then she's smoking outside, and Harry comes back, and Harry says something very strong. There's some very strong words, and Harry is the character throughout the series who comes across as very serious, but to me, he is that father figure that Beth never had. I don't know about you, and again, this would be a great time if you let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you see Harry? I never seen Harry as a boyfriend figure or a brother, more like that father, because he's so wise and very serious and a bit awkward. So to me, he's that father figure that Beth never had. And Harry expresses his worries again. He did it before, and he's always turns up at the moment when Beth really needs it. So I really like that. Harry mentions that his father used to drink, and he was never aggressive, but he used to smell the same as Beth is smelling. He used to have the look of the eyes the same as Beth has. And he mentions that he passed away because of his drinking, and that their family life was seriously affected. So Beth takes the defensive spot here, but I just honestly really like Harry. He's grown on me. I don't like it when they try to date, because I don't think that's a match whatsoever. But as this caring father figure, I love him. So I'm curious about your opinions as well. Moving on. So here where Harry turns up, again, like we can't be shocked at the fact that Beth is so defensive and so going through these stages. Like she experienced so much trauma in her life from childhood that eventually it has to come up, and it will come up. So I'm sure still losing her birth mother is still affecting her. On top of that, she lost her adoptive mom. Her father figure was never there. And this is, in hardships, you really know who are your real friends, because we do know that Benny is watching over her, ringing her, trying to talk to her, trying to help her. Harry always turns up in the moments when she really needs some of that good fatherly help. And the doorbell rings again, and guess who turns up? Jolene. When I say this name, the song comes to mind. Jolene, Jolene. Love this song. So Jolene turns up, and I wanted to put a picture up where it's at the bottom, it's them as children, and on top is Jolene, and I should have put one next to her with Beth. How much they have changed as they grow up, and I love that. And Jolene is so cool. And that's how the episode 6 ends. Jolene is there and says, "Who are you?" She does not recognize Beth, and I feel like she can instantly see, looking at Beth, that she's not well and she's not herself. So episode 7, I believe that's going to be the last episode. So I'm going to try to do the episode 7, the final episode, in one summary of the film club, because I mean, it would be cruel not to, but I hope it was enjoyable to watch episode 6 in 2 parts. And I just really enjoy talking about it because I can relate 100%. And I remember when I was watching first the series, I could see the chessboard sometimes, and I used to tell my boyfriend, I was like, "Oh, checkmate there." But of course, on the film, it's only a few seconds usually that you really see the board. So that's why the ChessBase India article is linked. If you want to look at the chess elements more and see the games that were played. And the guy who wrote the article always explains amazingly which game did they copy, who played those games in the real chess life, in real world. So I think that's beautiful. And I wanted to also mention that I didn't know this, but one day I searched on Spotify for the Queen's Gambit playlist, and there is a Queen's Gambit official soundtrack playlist on Spotify. So I linked it down here below because I thought maybe some of you would love to listen to the songs, and these are amazing songs and really brings the emotional elements of the film, but also the time. I feel like it's called vintage, or it's some vintage, so it has that vintage feel and the time of the film. So you will find that link below. That's the little surprise, especially that episode 6 is full of musical gems as well. So I really wanted to share that. And if you watch this, I believe you will watch it later on. Let me know what you thought. And let me know if you have any extra suggestions for the final episode, episode 7. If you have any suggestion for the time, so it could be more of us watching live, or if you have any other suggestion, how should I present it? And yes, I will see you all very soon. And thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you who watch this live. And I will see you very soon. Bye.